We're here with Michael Kramer, and we're serving the Santa Barbara today, and we are at Hypecats, and the reason we're here is because Michael Kramer and I met a couple weeks ago at a mutual friend of ours' birthday party, and I asked him, what he did, and he was telling me what he's been up to with the Alcazar Theatre. And I thought that was just tremendously interesting. So I thought, well, gee, let's do a podcast about that. It's like nowadays in the 21st century, in the 20s, I guess it's sort of analogous to asking someone up to see your etchings or whatever. Everyone's got a podcast, so it's like, hey, baby, let's do my podcast. So. So anyways, I'm here with Michael, and he's going to tell me about what Hypecats is up to. Now, you guys are working with the Alcazar Theatre to do what exactly? What is it that you're doing there at the Alcazar?
Well, the goal of the Alcazar is to be a performance theater.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Versus in the original day, maybe more... Well, I don't know when it was more cinema, but it's definitely the push is to go back to more performance theater.
Right.
And so the inherent problem with the Alcazar is it's a small venue. It has like 192 or 3 seats.
Sure, yeah.
And so even if you brought in a great act that people wanted to watch, you're limited in your seating, and so therefore you're limited in your income.
Right, exactly.
So then comes COVID and hybrid events, and so the technology is really pushing the edge right now of how you can really get beyond the borders of physical borders and into broadcasting.
Well, sure. I mean, we all found, when COVID started and everybody started working from home and all the kids started going to school from home and everyone all of a sudden discovered what Zoom was. Now, Zoom was certainly in existence before COVID, but it was really that whole thing that motivated people to find a different way to communicate with each other rather than getting together in person. So they found the video connection to be a good way of staying in touch with each other. And so now you mentioned that like the Alcazar has got seating for a couple hundred people or whatever, and that really limits your audience to the number of people that you can fit in the house. But what I'm thinking is if you can bring people in digitally, you aren't limited at all by how big the house is, right?
That's exactly right.
Right. So now, so what are you doing exactly with the Alcazar, and what kind of technology are you guys using to? And let's say I'm a client of yours, and I've got a business that wants to do some kind of event, but I want to do it virtually. What kind of package can you put together for me? What kind of services can you provide to make that, obviously worth the money it's going to cost to do it,
Well, we just did one about a week ago for Dr. Laura Schlesinger.
Oh, at the Alcazar?
Well, no, it was not at the Alcazar.
Okay.
It was in our green screen studio in downtown Santa Barbara.
Oh, okay.
So, and I'll show you
cool.
that a little bit later. But so I guess there's 2 types of events. If you're just wanting to broadcast yourself, then you can go into a green screen room, and you can present yourself in whatever way you want to, because you can be wherever you want to in a background setting, and I'll show you that in a little bit too. But if you're going to have a true hybrid event, a hybrid event is where you have an event that's occurring, yet you have other people outside that event that are either also watching or contributing, and
right.
typically
right.
watching and contributing. So that's a true hybrid event. So we did do our first event was Kyle Petty at the
Sure.
Alcazar. So that was that was a real hybrid event. So he's on, I think he's in Nashville, and so race car driver from the Petty family, and so we brought him in through Zoom, and we overlaid him into some TV production software that we use.
Yeah.
So that we could put him in a beautiful set with zooming cars going by and nice fast title overlays with his name on there, and then there was an audience, and so he could talk to people in the audience. He could see them from the stage that he was projected on, and they could see him.
Nice.
And when they wanted to talk to him, all they had to do was go up to a microphone, because that's the only way he can hear you. He can't hear you if you're too far back in the room.
Makes sense.
But it was a great event. It was actually bigger than life. I think I probably enjoyed him more on the big screen, being able to talk to him, than if he was real, actual person size.
Well, I think that we're finding that, I mean, we talked about Zoom a little while ago, and Zoom is all well and good, whether it be a Skype or whatever, but it is a bit rudimentary, and it's nice to we're all sort of used to television and slickly produced internet video, and then to see somebody badly lit on Zoom is a little bit deflating, kind of. I mean, I'm a big consumer of television news, and I used to work in the news industry, and certainly with COVID happening, everybody had to go to these just lousy Zoom cameras and stuttering and lost connections and that sort of thing, and the industry had to kind of accept it, but it's kind of lowered the bar, and it's nice to see things kind of rebound a bit. And so I think that while a lot of people are thinking something like, oh, gee, Zoom's free or whatever, and I could do my thing on Zoom, come on. You're talking about putting somebody in a virtual set and making it look really slick, and you're talking about broadcast quality stuff, which is very easy to do. And to me, the psychological difference when you to use whatever inarticulate term, when you consume that media, if it's slick, it goes down smooth. If it's not so slick, it kind of goes down a little harsh, and you don't even realize it. So I think when you see something that's slickly produced, you just like it better. You don't know why, because the information's still the same, right? I mean, the guest is still the same. The person is still the same. They're saying the same things, but the fact that it's slickly produced just makes it better. I mean, I know that's inarticulate.
Well, I think the important thing is audio.
Oh, no, I totally agree.
Your video can be pretty crappy,
Yeah.
low quality, you can stutter, but if your audio is not good, then people will tune out. I was just listening to news over the weekend,
Yeah.
and they did a big piece with Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you saw that piece, but she was well lit. She was
Right.
obviously in studio somewhere, but the internet connection was poor, and there were times where she continued to talk, but the lips didn't move.
Yeah.
And you put up with it, and they cut her off at probably after about 10 minutes when the lips never moved again.
Right. Well,
Thank you, Hillary, for your participation today. We're going to be moving on.
It's great that we have that connection, but it's like, you're watching the news, you're watching some talking head show where they've got guests on, and it used to be that they were in a studio, and it was it was a good connection, and it was a satellite feed, and suddenly it was all over somebody's bad, slow internet connection, and instead of it being somebody either in front of an actual thing like a window or on a green screen, but a well-produced green screen, suddenly it's like they're on Zoom with some bogus 2D background or whatever, and that doesn't look good at all. It's just terrible television. And like you said, the audio is so important, and you don't realize how important it is. as an old radio guy, I'm certainly keen on having good audio. And the fact that the bar is so low right now for broadcast media with audio drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
It drives me crazy. You know, it's like, yes, we're getting the communication, but try to fluff it up a little bit. Mm-hmm. Let's make it nice. Let's make it pretty.
Yeah. Well, oftentimes when we get hired, and most of our hires are not in the Santa Barbara area. I'd say in the last 25 events, we've only done maybe 2 in Santa Barbara area.
Okay.
In Carpinteria or Santa Barbara. All the other ones are more East Coast. And so with those events, we produce them from Santa Barbara, but we've never met the people in person. So we will assess what equipment is needed. We will ship that equipment out. Someone else on the other end will unpack it. Usually someone that has a little bit of technology experience. They don't have to be in this industry, but just, a computer guy. Someone unpacks everything and then puts the A's and the B's together, follows the instructions, and we're on the phone with them. And then we produce the event. And the first thing that we do to try to avoid your description of poor quality on Zoom is we do tech checks. And we charge the client for every tech check. And we're doing an event in 2 weeks for the University of Utah. And the event is 25 asset managers being introduced to 65 colleges and universities to their alumni association to help them maybe possibly manage some of those alumni monies. And so the organization that's putting this on has hired us to tech check all 25 asset managers who's probably on Zoom all day long anyway.
Right.
But they want to make sure that their lighting is correct, that they're looking straight ahead into their camera so that when they talk, people feel like they're being talked to and not down to. That their audio is good. We've had to tell several people that their audio is not good quality enough, and we've made recommendations as to different types of audio that you can get. You can get something like what we're using now, which is just kind of a boom mic, handheld boom on a wire. You can get over the headset. You can get Bluetooth, like Apple earbuds are pretty good. But we'll make all kinds of recommendations. Lighting, we've asked people to buy certain types of light or change the orientation of their desk in the room that they're going to be seated at. Right. And all of these things help to improve the quality of the video. The other thing that happens on Zoom, and I just hate it when people use backgrounds, if they don't have virtual backgrounds, if they don't have a green screen. In Zoom, they'll reduce the quality in half. Oh, yeah. So Zoom quality is 720p, and they'll reduce it down to 320p. And so it's really poor quality. So the industry standard right now is don't use a background. Just orient yourself so that you've got whatever best background you have available.
They're cute and everything, but you know what? They're not worth it. Don't use it.
Unless you have a green screen, then it's fine. But if you don't have a green screen, then you should not be using.
Just sit in front of a bookshelf or whatever, and there you go.
And there's a misunderstanding that if you use the blur feature in Zoom to blur your background, that you're not using a background, and therefore you're safe. And the blur is a background. It's not. Don't kid yourself. It still reduces the quality of your feed.
So I think what you're saying here really brings home the fact that these resources are good and available to just about anybody with a computer and an internet connection, but it helps to have someone hold your hand up a little bit. It helps to have someone give you advice and to look at your thing and give you honest advice, because your Aunt Margaret might think that you look fine, but maybe you should have a professional give you their honest opinion and give you helpful suggestions on how to achieve the thing that you're trying to achieve. That right there is really, really, really valuable, because right now, with this kind of technology, we're kind of in the Wild West a bit, where technology's changing so fast and we're all kind of figuring out how to use it. And it's really good to have access to an expert who kind of knows what the technology can do and how to use it correctly.
Yeah, I think you're right on the money there. If your significant other tells you you don't look or sound good, you go, yeah, right. I'm on Zoom all the time. I know what I'm doing. Yeah. But when someone is hired and paid as a professional to make you look and sound amazing, then you listen. Yeah. Right? You listen.
Yeah. Absolutely, and it's not as easy. I mean, the thing is that you're talking about technical advice, but now like how much coaching are you doing of the actual subject to be a smooth presenter? Are you working with them to help
So that would
them?
be kind of like a run a show where we're going through and we're saying, okay, person A is going to finish. They're going to introduce you.
Yeah.
Let's hear the start of your presentation just for a minute or two so that we can make comment on it. We don't
Right.
normally do that.
Right.
What we will do is a little bit level higher than that. We'll do a run of show tech review
Sure.
so that all people involved know what the sequence of events are.
Yeah.
An important one is when to show up, because what happens is people say, you know, my Zoom is reliable. I can show up 5 minutes before I'm on. We're all ready to go. And trust me, when we're producing a show and you're going to be on in 5 minutes and we don't see you in the program, we are freaking out.
Yes.
And we are, all hell is breaking loose. We are changing the program and taking you out of the program.
Yeah.
So everyone needs to be checked in at least a half hour in advance.
I was going to say half an hour.
Minimum. And then you get a coffee if you want, but be in the show.
Yeah.
And one other comment that something that I see that's happening out there a lot in corporate America and even in larger nonprofits, you know, they've got the person in the office. It's always been their go-to tech person. You know, hey, how do I do this on my computer? How do I do this? And those people kind of inherited, okay, you're going to be our Zoom person. Right? And so then what happens is they get closer to this big annual event that they're going to put on. And this person is starting to get nervous because they're like, you know what? The company is putting thousands and thousands of dollars into this, and we're coordinating all of these people. And, you know, I'm just a guy that answered questions about, you know, how do I get my Microsoft Word to work or my internet or my email to work properly? And now all of a sudden I'm a producer. I can't tell you how many calls we've gotten, you know, less than 2 weeks out where someone just goes, we need a professional to come in here and we need peace of mind because we can't afford to not have this go off smoothly.
Well, yeah, and the thing is that it's hard to describe, but it's really nerve-wracking like nothing else can be. It's the whole fear of crashing and burning very publicly in front of all of your friends and or coworkers, and that produces a lot of anxiety in people. And certainly with my own, you know, radio work, spent a lot of time working with both radio professionals that were trying to learn how to be better, as well as guests on talk shows and whatever that might be very knowledgeable business owner about something, but being a radio expert maybe wasn't their first choice. And so you had to kind of make them comfortable and to not be so nervous. Because I tell you what, man, when they're afraid of the microphone, like they don't want to get near it or whatever, it's so painful. And so working with the people who are on camera, I think is really, I don't know, it's really important.
No, you're right on.
You know,
David, the people that are used to being very social, talking in small group meetings, being leaders, as soon as you put a camera in front of them, not an audience, but a lens and a microphone, they go,
There's a thing, and I have actually described this to a number of people that I've actually coached to be on camera, because I used to do a lot of camera interviews as well when I was at News Press TV. And what I would say to people was pretend the camera is like a robot. It's a creature. It's a thing that you're talking to. It's one thing that you're talking to. Because what happens is that people think of the camera as being like a portal to all of the thousands of people that they are imagining watching them. And so they wind up having like a stage fright, like they're standing in front of a huge crowd. Whereas if you had the same thing, whereas it was just one person that you were talking to, you would relax wholeheartedly, you know? So I I would try to get into the people. The camera, yeah, it's a robot. This is its head, this is its body, and you're speaking to the robot camera. And by doing that, if they really could do it, they would just relax.
So one of the tricks that we've done to try to help people feel like there's an audience on the other side of the camera is we'll bring in a small audience.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll put them on Zoom, and there'll be people related to the event, and we'll put it behind the camera so that you're really talking to those people. That's the feeling that you want to get.
Sure.
Because when you're talking to that inanimate object, the camera, it is hard to feel any kind of feedback. The camera doesn't give you feedback.
It doesn't give you feedback. And I was going back to COVID again. There were so many television programs where, like, a comedian would be telling a joke to an audience and used to the laughter that would come back, and all of a sudden the audience was nowhere to be seen now because they couldn't go in the studio. And some comics adapted to that kind of format better than other ones did. And, like, for example, I'm a big Bill Maher fan. I love Bill Maher. I watched well, I was going to call it politically incorrect, Real Time with Bill Maher every week. I think he's genius, but when he was doing his show from the backyard of his house, it was so bad. He was so bad. He had no audience giving him the feedback that he needed to do a really convincing job. So he would tell the jokes and they would just fall really flat, you know? Whereas someone like Colbert on CBS was really good at relating to the camera all alone, and he was really funny, and I thought he was good, but Maher was horrible. So now Maher's got an audience, thank God he's good again. But yeah, it's just you're not getting that feedback from the camera.
Yeah,
you know,
just even having a small audience.
Having a little audience, having someone clap for you, or just seeing their enthusiasm or whatever is really important.
Yeah, really important.
Yeah.
That's the downside of a green screen room. You're really by yourself, maybe with 2 or 3 other people in the room with you, but there's not much feedback. So a small venue like the Alcazar is a way for someone like Dr. Laura to fill the seats,
right?
But then to have potentially 2,000 to 10,000 more people on Zoom, that are willing to pay to be there. But one of the things that we did when we did her first show is we brought people in from Zoom into the show. So people were talking, you could see them. At the very end, they were dancing in their Zoom cameras. It was terribly fun. But you're actually integrating the virtual audience into the program. And that's what made it super cool.
That's a lot of fun, and that's something, going back to just broadcast television, that's something that talk shows started to integrate, where they have the studio audience, but they would have them virtually. So they have a whole wall of monitors and a bunch of squares, and everybody's on Zoom, clapping away like they're really there, and it's fun. It's fun. When you're talking about somebody like Dr. Laura in a smaller venue, I mean, Dr. Laura is a big, big star, and so she's going to attract thousands of people who want to see what she has to say. And it's great if she wants to, get in the thing and drive to L.A. and rent the thing and then have the people come but maybe, you do it either a small venue that's a little closer to home, or no venue at all. You just do her in front of a green screen, but you allowed then the thousands of people that would, want to check her out. And I think that because of the convenience, well, I don't even want to say convenience, the necessity of doing that kind of thing because of COVID, I think that it's just kind of awoken people's realization to kind of a different way of doing it.
Yeah, and I can relate it to the corporate world too, because one of the reasons I don't think that this virtual is going away is because there's so much cost savings.
Yes.
So think about the production cost to put Dr. Laura at the Arlington Theatre, right? You got all those people that are involved. I mean, it's a huge cost, and someone like Dr. Laura can probably do a pretty good job of filling that up. But there's a huge production cost involved and a lot of time, months and months and months of planning. You can put on a virtual event in a few weeks.
Right.
Right?
Right.
It's a much smaller production. You still get a broader audience. And I think for a lot of people that Alcazar venue is going to be very attractive because it's not so large that you need a whole army and months to prepare for it. And yet it's small enough if you've got the equipment in place, which we've got equipment over there right now, that you can produce a show pretty quickly and reliably and get that show out there and have in-person and virtual.
Well, and the thing I like about the Alcazar Theatre, too, is that, it's, Carpinteria, California is a historic theater, so obviously it means a lot to us in Carpinteria, but it's also just a great example of a regional theater that's as old as it is, that's so well built, and they did a good job preserving it to begin with, and then just a few years ago put a lot of money into kind of renovating it, and it is beautiful on the inside now. I mean, if you remember what it used to be like back when it was a movie theater or whatever, it was, a little shabby, and the bones were there, but it was a little shabby, Boy, man,
That's beautiful.
The last gig I went to at the Alcazar Theatre, man, it is just a great looking theater, and so it's going to look great on camera, kids. Yeah. What a great venue that is. So that's awesome. So now you've been working with the Alcazar, but you've been working with other locations. That's one thing you're doing, and that's really cool. So now, what other services can you provide? I mean, if I'm your client and I'm coming in saying, "Hey, I want to do this thing. I've got this idea that I want to promote." How else? What other kind of venues
Well, let me help you out there.
Yeah, thank you. outlets or can you provide me with? Yeah.
So, obviously the Alcazar is more of an entertainment venue where you've got a kind of a one-to-many relationship with your audience. But there are true hybrid events, and hybrid events in the business world are usually used for conducting business, not for conducting entertainment. So what we've done is we've partnered with Work Zones, which is located at the Paseo Nuevo in downtown Santa Barbara, and they've got 15,000 square feet of meeting space. I think they've got 30 different meeting rooms. They can host up to, I think, 75 people in a meeting room. And so one of the things that we're doing right now is we've got equipment over there that lives there, just like we have at the Alcazar.
Okay.
And when someone wants to have a hybrid meeting,
sure.
So let's say maybe you've got corporate headquarters here, but you're a national company and you need to have a marketing meeting or you need to have some sort of meeting. So you can bring in, anywhere from 10 to 75 people, and you can interact with your audience across the country. And so what we do is we set up monitors and cameras around the room, and the cameras are interesting because they're known as PTZ cameras. This is a big phenomenon that's come out recently since COVID, and PTZ stands for Pan, Tilt, Zoom.
Sure.
And so it's a way for us to remotely
robotically
mount a camera on a wall or on a tripod, not even have a person standing behind it.
I know.
But from remotely, we can control that camera. And it's interesting because a lot of these events, we have one employee, full-time employee who's been with us for 6 years now down in San Diego. Another employee that's been with us for 5 years. She's out in the Palm Desert area. And they're oftentimes involved in these events,
and they're dialed in via the internet,
and they're dialed in via the internet.
They're running the camera via the internet. That just blows my mind.
Yeah, from San Diego, they're the camera guy.
I have mixed feelings about that. I must say, because I just love the technology, and I think that the technology is really there to allow you to just do great production with limited people and limited budget, and I think that is just awesome. But at the same time, as a broadcast professional that has no longer got a gig where they're paying me to do that sort of thing, there are less and less gigs all the time. So somebody or somewhere, there's a camera operator that's got no gig because you've got the pan, zoom, and tilt camera that you can operate via the internet robotically. So, I mean, it's great. It's awesome. I love it. But at the same time, that camera operator's got to find a new job somewhere.
Well, we still need camera operators. There is an artistic style.
The thing is, though, here's the deal.
Camera.
Spoken as a broadcast professional, you will always need a camera operator, but you'll need less and less and less and less of them.
Well, rather than having one person behind each camera, now you can have one person behind, say, two cameras.
I know. I took over a gig as the director of the morning show at KUIT, and when I had been at KUIT previously to produce the morning show, there was a director and a technical director and a video playback / graphics person, and there was an audio operator, and there was a producer, and of course, the talent and stuff is in front of the camera, but all those people were replaced by basically one person. As the director, I was also the technical director, the graphics operator, the video playback operator, and the person doing the audio was just simply wasn't an audio professional at all. It was just somebody on loan from the editing department who happened to have a couple extra minutes to run the audio for the half-hour news that was on. And that was the way that it was. And so you're pushing buttons and you're just going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, which is great that they've got the technology to allow you to do that. But with the less people, it becomes a real intense gig, and so I have mixed feelings about it. I wish that the increased technology didn't lead to the decreased personnel as much as it has, because you couple the decreased personnel with the need for less people, with also the desire to minimize the payroll. And that's where the problem is. It's like, it's okay to minimize the payroll, I guess, if that's what's keeping you alive. But at the same time, less and less and less and less. And
David, I would argue with that. I would argue that there's more and more roles. They're just different roles.
Well, that's the thing.
Because this idea,
shifting.
this virtual event, and having the ability, the technology for people that have lower budgets to get started.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I'm online constantly on YouTube as part of these channels that specialize in this, and it's an exploding industry. So there are places for anyone that has those skills.
Well, now that's a thought. I mean, it's one of those things where you're hoping that you get an increase in the amount of business out there. If you can lower the bar for people to get on board, you get more people on board. So I think that's what you're saying. It's like you're trying to increase the whole thing. And I agree with you there. But at the same time, I just think that the bar just overall is being lowered just as a broadcaster. I just don't think things are as slick as they
we're
used to be.
accepting less slick is okay.
Oh yeah, it is.
That's the secret, because if it hadn't been for COVID, you wouldn't accept all these.
No, I know, and I agree, and that's the thing. I mean, I really am kind of middle of the road about this whole thing, because I recognize the necessity for it. I also recognize the value of it, but I just don't like. I don't know. I just don't like. I like things to be a little slicker than they are.
Mm-hmm.
That's
well.
all.
It used to be if you had an event some truck would show up, some TV truck.
Oh, yeah.
And popping out of the top would be this
yeah.
big dome, right? This big saucer,
yeah.
and it would
Oh,
orient
yeah.
itself
sure.
to some satellite somewhere.
Exactly.
And you pay a lot of money for that truck.
Yes, you do.
And now there's a company that's kind of leading this area called Live View, and basically what they do is they take anywhere from 2 to 5 cell phones. They snap them onto this little battery pack.
Nice.
And it binds all the internet connection of all. And you can have one cell phone be Verizon, next one be T-Mobile,
right.
AT&T.
So your signal, your connection winds up being kind of, bulletproof.
So you can be just, lowering that bar of cost of entry. You can put together your little own cell phone pack and leave the truck behind.
Oh yeah, no, I realize that, and that's certainly been the case for a bit, and it's just getting to the point where, well, I mean, it's quite easy to do. I mean, when you watch the local news, virtually every time you see somebody who's out in the field, the connection is an internet connection. They're using what they call a DiGiro, and it just hooks up via the internet. It's not what it used to be, a live truck anywhere. And back when I was doing television, and I was working on the Bill O'Reilly, the O'Reilly Factor on Fox News, Dennis Miller was coming into our studio and doing his segments on the O'Reilly Factor from our studios in Santa Barbara. And the first 2 times he did that, Fox News sent satellite trucks to our studio to set the sat trucks up just in case our signal was not Fox News quality. And we had a rig, and this technology, it's old now, but it blows my mind. They were using the phone company's copper wiring to relay an internet broadcast that's like a T1 plus across the country, and between Santa Barbara, California, and Fort Lee, New Jersey, which is where Master Control was for Fox News, it was less than 0.5 seconds of latency, which basically means that the delay was less than half a second. I mean, when you're watching the news and the person in the studio asks a person in the field a question, and it takes them 5 seconds to answer the question, that's because there's a delay between the studio and the person on the field. You don't really want that if you're doing the O'Reilly Factor. So the fact that we were able to get this, what we refer to as the flamethrower of a signal over the copper phone wires, that actually both times that Fox News sent their sat trucks out and connected them just to make sure the signal was okay, they took our signal both times because our signal was faster and superior than their sat trucks. And that to me went, oh, wait a minute, you can do that over the internet? Okay, and it was just flawless every week that we did it. We were able to do it over the internet. And when you talk about, the cost was so much lower being able to do him that way. And we just had, 2 guys in the studio. It was me, and there was a director. Actually, there was a third person that was doing his makeup, and that was it. Whereas if it had been a studio and he'd been in there, it would be a lot more going on, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, bandwidth issues are always a factor. When we put together a production, we have an Excel sheet that we put down all the equipment and all the bandwidth, internal bandwidth and external bandwidth. So that'd be intranet and internet bandwidth. Right. And we weigh that up against how much bandwidth we have available.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that's super important if you're streaming is your upload bandwidth. And for like the average home, your upload bandwidth is maybe like 5 megabits.
Yeah, maybe.
And so, a good YouTube Zoom stream takes 5 megabits. So that means you're using 100%.
Right.
So that's why people that just have their regular home service are sometimes waffling in their sound or their video because they're right on the edge of what it takes to produce a 720p stream up to Zoom. One of the things that's happening that's kind of correcting that, I mean, we pay about $300 a month to have 30 megabit upload in our office, but they just put fiber in the building, and so we'll potentially have about 800 megabit upload. So
See,
that
just blows my mind.
800 megabits. I mean, that's faster than I can transfer files
See,
between two computers in my office.
I got like 10 megabytes, and whatever. That just blows my mind. That's just technology just doing its thing, Yeah. It's as a completely unrelated subject of conversation. Just me being an old man, I can remember way before you, my young boy, were ever born, back about 1984, 3, working at DMA Technologies out in Goleta, making hard disk drives, 5.5-inch hard disk drives, and they had 10 megabytes of data storage in them. 10 megabytes, and that was cool. And they were about $1,200, and they had 10 megabytes. And I remember reading an article in the trades that was talking about how someday, off in the distant future, we'll be able to pack in 100 megabytes onto a disk. And that's going to be way more data than you're going to need, really, for anything, And 1984 was, it was in the last century. It was a while ago, but it wasn't that long ago.
That's right.
And now you go into the Best Buy and pick up a 2 terabyte hard drive for $50 or whatever, and I just go, wow. So you're talking about like internet speeds. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're gonna look back on this time. I truly believe. I mean, we're already looking at the last 20 years this way, and I will continue to do this, where we're looking back on the technology like the old folks used to look at like crystal radios or whatever when they had like a stereo. It's like, it was so quaint and primitive back in those days. We had to wait for our modem to connect to the internet. We don't do that anymore, and we think, oh, how cute that is, And now it's like we're gonna wait, 30 seconds to download a file. We're gonna in the future look at that and go, whoa, that was a drag. Can you remember when we had to wait for to download a file? I mean, I was talking to somebody about was it not Kazaa? Was it Kazaa? The file sharing. Napster. I was talking to somebody a while ago about Napster. Downloading all the music that you wanted from Napster when it was brand new. Spending all day long, downloading one song at a time forever, with your dial-up connection. And now, it's like it'll take me a minute and a half to download the entire a torrent of the illegal, of course, a torrent of the Beatles' entire catalog in like a minute and a half as MP3s. It just, I'm sorry, Napster wasn't that long ago, and you look at Napster now and you go, oh, how cute it was. You used to download one song at a time from one computer at a time. Oh, how quaint. So in another 30 years, I just believe that it's just going to be like magic. It's good. Things will happen instantaneously, and we'll just go. Remember when you had to wait for stuff to happen on the? Remember when you had to wait for? Remember when you had to wait to think of something before it happened? Gee, those were hard days. Now they happen even before you think of them. Wow.
I remember when computers were that slow. My mother was a good typist, typing like 80 to 90 words a minute.
Right.
And she could type so fast that the computer would lag behind her.
Wow. Wow. That's one thing, too. Another distant memory of mine, because I'm an old man, I remember taking typing lessons when I was in school. and that's something that actually boys, for the most part, didn't really do. Most girls took typing lessons, but I had a thing for Jodie Foster, and she had a typing class in the Disney film Freaky Friday. And so since I had a crush on Jodie Foster, I thought, well, she took a typing class. I'll take a typing class too. Maybe I'll meet a nice girl in typing class. So little did I know that was going to be kind of a necessary skill to have in the future, that everybody's going to need to be able to type on a keyboard. You can either hunt and peck it, or you can figure out where all the, QWERTY letters are. And who knew? Who knew that was going to be a thing?
Yeah, no, I was in, I think, junior high school, and that would have been in 1971. And I did take a typing class, and because of that, I still to this day can type like 80 words a minute.
Yeah.
I don't even have to. It just goes from brain to finger. I don't even have to look at the keyboard. Yeah. People look at me and they're like, "Who's typing?"
Yeah.
That's me. You're typing. You're talking to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. It's great because I've been in I've worked in a lot of offices. Just all of a sudden just start typing stuff, and everybody's like, "Whoa, this guy can type." I was like, "Hey, I got hidden job skills."
Well, that's one of my tests when we hire new interns or employees. I say, we've got this typing test that I want you to take just to see how fluent you are in typing paragraphs or typing numbers, because we do a lot of typing around here. And I got to tell you, the people that can type fast typically they make pretty good employees.
Sure. Well,
not so much.
You talk about technology and how it changes nowadays. Nowadays, people say, "Are you a good typist?" "Oh, I'm great. I can type a bunch with my thumbs." It's like they're so used to thinking about texting. It's like, no. I mean, like using like a QWERTY keyboard. Oh yeah, those I've heard of those before. I have one on my phone. I have to look.
So we strayed away from the hybrid stuff and the videos, and
we did and kind of got off onto a tangent here. And one of the things that I want to do before we wrap up here is talk about hybrid events and where the technology is going. And it's not just the technology, it's kind of the social structure of the technology as well. So you're talking about hybrid events and virtual events, and we're seeing that now in kind of a rough form. But over the next, let's say, 10 years or so, what can we expect to see in the, whether it be not necessarily the broadcast industry, but the communications industry, for how people can stay in touch with each other via events? What are we going to be doing in the future?
Well, I think YouTube is going to get more and more popular.
Yeah.
Google owns YouTube, and so they promote it. But there's other large video platforms, Vimeo, all of these social streaming services. Twitch, Facebook, Twitter. They're all competing for eyeballs for video content, and it's becoming easier and easier for anyone to get out their message by self-broadcasting. So we've got a new client that is in North Carolina.
Sure.
She'll do her first event with us, virtual event, in 2 weeks, and it's a small audience, but she's in the sales industry for dentistry. She helps dentists do better collections and sales collections of monies with insurance.
Okay.
And so she's choosing to use self-broadcast as a way to expose herself to more and more dentists, to interview dentists and interview people around the dental industry to give herself notoriety. And she's doing this all from her home. She'll have a green screen, she'll self-broadcast, and she'll do it very inexpensively. And I expect more and more people, rather than go belly to belly, become subject experts. And the way that you become a subject expert is you have to talk about it. You have to talk about what it is that you do, and people have to have a format for you to listen. That could either be a podcast, but although I see there's a movement right now. We've had several people come to us that say, "I have a podcast, and now I want to do something more." So you can have like a video interview,
Sure.
and then take the audio from that, and there's your podcast. So you can bang out both with one at one time. And so we see the tendency for more and more people to do that. That's what this gal in North Carolina, she's had this podcast now. She wants to notch it up a level.
Well, so it seems to me that what you're doing is you're helping people take more control over their outlets, as to use not quite the term I'm looking for, but as influencers, as experts, and rather than spending all their time, which they do right now, trying to hire a PR firm to get them booked as a guest on talk shows and that sort of thing, or whatever it is that they're trying to do. If you put yourself out as an expert, whether you're looking for media attention or you're looking for industry connection, you want to meet doctors that are into this thing, or you want to meet people, because I see it as a hybrid between sales and communication. I mean, like there's very little line between social media influencers and and the money they make. And so I think to kind of stream that out a little bit and help people take control of how they present themselves. It certainly looks better than having just a lousy Zoom call, making yourself available via Skype or whatever.
Well, and it's super cheap to get into. She's going to probably buy maybe $1,000 to $1,200 worth of equipment. That's all she needs to self-publish.
Yeah.
So there's another friend of mine that's in the Sarasota and Bradenton area. He has an online channel on YouTube called The Mormon Book Review. And I think he's in his early 40s, and he's always been a fan of the Mormon religion. But he never really met anyone that was a Mormon until like 2 years ago.
Right.
There were no Mormons in Central Florida.
Yeah, sure.
And so, but he deeply studied all these books and is considered at this point to be more knowledgeable about the history of the Mormon than almost anyone that's a Mormon. And so from a spare room, a crowded spare room that just had boxes in it in his mobile home, he started his own little YouTube channel. And he just published his 100th episode, and he's done it on a shoestring. He uses his phone, his cell phone, as his camera, and his microphone. And then he's got a friend in the neighborhood that can kind of put the final video together for him and publishes up on YouTube, and people are dying to get on his show.
That's awesome.
Like they're calling him, could I get on your show? I just wrote a book, or I have some opinions. I want to get on your show. And
well, that's cool. I love that, and that gives me hope for the future of this silly little thing we call surf. The world's safest. Who knows? We got it out there on YouTube and Spotify and Amazon, and soon we're all fine podcasts are sold. But so I'm hoping I can meet up with Joe Rogan at the next Spotify company luncheon, get some advice from him. But it's amazing that people are actually able to sort of make a career out of being the person that you're finding interesting. And it's like, what do? Well, they're just themselves. It's like they don't have a shtick where they're telling a joke or they're singing a song or they're just themselves. And it's amazing that people are able to take this technology and present themselves as an expert, and that because sometimes you need an expert. You don't know them. So you look in the phone book for an expert, and guess what? Nowadays, it's the internet. So listen, technology is changing, and we've spent a lot of time talking about just relatively small focus of technology. And one thing that I was hoping to do, we didn't really talk about that much, because we talked about Hypecats and some of the work that you're doing with the video presentation and events with the Alcazar and other places. But one thing I want to talk about, which we didn't really talk about, is sort of the connected business, your web design business, Miravant, which sort of seems to me would couple very well with video service, and that's a whole other thing. But unfortunately, it's a whole nother show. So maybe we'll schedule another podcast for another day.
Excellent.
But in the meantime, if I want to get more information about Hypecats and what it is that you're doing and how I can utilize it for myself, how do I do so?
Well, Hypecats does have a website. It's hypecats.com. And all the different types of services and more that we spoke about today are there with examples so that you can see what those look like, because a lot of this is kind of a foreign language to people. They're not used to this vernacular. And so we try to break down what are the elements of these different types of meetings, how much do they cost, how long do they take to produce, what's involved. So you can kind of start your research there. And we've got contact information there. There's a contact form. You can also reach us at 805-456-6011. That's into our studio in downtown Santa Barbara.
Okay.
That's probably the best way.
Okay, well, outstanding. Well, so that gives me some information and some things to look at, because I'm kind of curious about what the technology is going to look like in the future, because I've sort of seen its progression over the last several decades and participated in some of its changes, and I'm kind of curious to see where it goes in the future. So in the meantime, we've been here with Michael Kramer, and we've been surfing the world's safest in Santa Barbara, California, at Hypecats, talking about technology, and Miravant as well, and their web design business. So we'll figure out where we're going to go next time and pick it up from there. So in the meantime, we'll catch you later, okay?